I was bored one day in study hall, and I decided to make up some top 10 lists. Eventually, I got to the idea of top 10 evil organizations in video games. These are various groups who ended up as the villains of the various games they're featured in. However, these aren't necessarily the most evil organizations, but they include extremely evil organizations as well as goofy and otherwise memorable ones. Now, a couple of ground rules. Number 1, I try to use one entry per series. This avoids any one series from getting too much bias in one list. Number 2, I try to have one entry per list, meaning I try not to have the same character or entry on multiple of my different lists, again, so I don't show too much bias. This rule does have a few exceptions on a couple of my other lists, but not necessarily in this one. Just keep that in mind. Number 3, this list involves entries from games that I've either played, I own, or I otherwise know about. If I didn't put something on the list that you think I should have, I probably don't know enough about it in order to have included it. Feel free to make a comment on this video as to who you would have put. Also, the clips I'm going to be using for this video, I recorded off of YouTube, since I either don't own the games on it, or I simply didn't want to turn them on for a 20-second long clip. So yeah. Also, be aware that there are potential spoilers in the video regarding the games on the list, so be warned. Without further ado, let's get on with the top 10 evil organizations in video games. Number 10. I'm starting off the list with a somewhat obscure game for the PlayStation, Valkyria Chronicles. I'll be honest, I haven't played much of it. I got the first one, and I only played about the first chapter and a half or so, but I know enough about the story from both the first cutscene of the game and Project Crosszone. The evil organization that earns the number 10 spot is simply known as the Empire. Well, I guess I used to call it the Imperial Army or the Imperial Empire, but I don't know. While some can argue that they aren't necessarily evil, I think it counts similarly to the way that many people see Germany as the bad guys of World War II. No offense to anyone from Germany, it was like a century ago, and I'm not necessarily mad or anything about that. In the world of Valkyria Chronicles, the most useful resource, Ragnite, is running out, which causes the countries to go to war against each other. The very large Imperial Army is considered to be the villains of the first game because they invade the small country of Gallia, which declared neutrality. The Empire is so low on the list because it's a pretty obscure game, and I simply don't know enough about it other than what appears in the beginning scene of the first game. Regardless, I still believe it deserves its spot. Number 9. Next on the list is a group from a very popular game, Luigis Mansion. I know that this can be argued about as far as whether or not it's a quote-unquote evil organization, but I'm including it in the idea that it's a group, not necessarily just being an organization in order to qualify. This spot goes to the Boos, or as I like to call them, the Boos. I'm sure most of you know the general plot for Luigi's Mansion, but just to be sure, it goes something like this. Luigi finds out that he's won a mansion in a contest he didn't even enter. Mario goes before him to make sure it's safe, and turns out it's not, and Mario gets kidnapped by the Boos that are haunting the mansion, which are led by the King Boo. Luigi, after not hearing from Mario in a while, goes to find him. While searching for him, he uncovers a secret switch.
There's a switch.
Secret switch.
There must be a creeper around here somewhere.
Shift the switch.
Secret creepers.
Luigi, just like anyone else in a horror story, presses it. And what do you know? It releases 50 Boos, including King Boo. So Luigi has to collect them in order to weaken their pull on the mansion and free Mario. I think that the Boos go really well on this list because it comes from a game that so many people have played and that I personally grew up with and loved. Number 8. Kid Icarus Uprising is by far one of the best games on the 3DS in my opinion. Until of course Super Smash Bros. Comes out, which it isn't out by the time of me recording this. If you haven't played it, I highly recommend it, assuming you can get used to the controls. And while they don't seem completely evil at first, the Underworld Army is far worse than their leader's wisecracking will lead you to believe.
Looks like someone left a tiny trike behind.
It's not a trike, it's an exotic.
You really have to learn how to tune him out.
I'm trying. He's just so annoying.
Unfortunately for you, there's only one way out.
Oh no, 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 no!
Toodaloo.
Okay, fine! I give up! Please spare me, please!
Obeying the call of nature is part of the cycle of life. Tell me, Kit, why you hate life?
All right! Finally time to save Palutena.
Save Palutena? Don't you mean crush Palutena?
Go home, Hades. Just go home.
The leader of the army, the evil god Hades, kills off humans and other creatures, and uses their souls to create more troops for their army. And I know what you may be thinking.
On a second. Your math is a little off. You might want to break out the brain age, pal.
I have a brain age of 24.
This is what's twisted about it though. He doesn't just use some of the souls, he kills off people, humans, and torments their souls to crank out more troops. This adds a level of evil to the group that earns it its spot at number 8. Number 7. Kirby games are really fun, and one of my favorites for the DS is Kirby's Squeak Squad. And what better evil organization for this list from the Kirby series than Squeak Squad? So there Kirby was, about to enjoy his delicious strawberry shortcake, when all of a sudden, BAM! It's snatched out of him by a mouse-shaped figure. Kirby chases them in pursuit of his delicious treat, which takes them to the Squeak Squad's hideout. Then Meta Knight steals it from the Squeak Squad, which gets stolen again from him, and then eventually opened. The Squeakers, that's what they're called, they're trying to find a treasure chest that contains an ultimate power, mistaking Kirby's cake treasure chest for it. This story is very convoluted and somewhat pointless, but I mean, what can you expect from a Kirby game? Number 6. Next up is a group from one of my favorite series recently, Rune Factory. This spot goes to the Cedrus Empire. Like I said in my top 10 bosses list, I know how it's pronounced, but I prefer not to go there. I haven't at this point played Rune Factory 1, which is where they start, but I have played Rune Factory 4, which airs the Empire as well, so I'm going to explain the story for them from that game instead of the original. So you're traveling on an airship to give a very important package to the prince of a town, when suddenly 2 Cedrus Empire goons attack you, and you lose your memory as well as the packages. The packages were actually rune spheres, which were created by a very powerful race called the Earthmates, which you are an Earthmate in every single game. The Earthmates can harness the energy of the Earth, rune energy, and the rune spheres can be used to contain and power the energy in certain areas. The Cedrus Empire leader, Emperor Ethelbert, is stealing them in order to use their power to become a god. However, you stop him pretty easily as I've described in my top 10 bosses list, and take the power back for its correct use. Number 5. This next one is kind of a long shot, but again, I include it because of the idea of groups, not necessarily organizations. However, the prosecutors of Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney are very evil. In real-life courts, 90% of the prosecutors in the area of this game would be jailed for misuse of the law. Prosecutors in Phoenix Wright use any means necessary, oftentimes illegal means, to get a guilty verdict, including forging evidence, arranging testimonies, threatening the judge, tasing you to steal evidence that you can be used against them, etc. Don't ever say that lawyers aren't evil. That's all I really have to say about this one, so moving on. Next. Number 4. I've tried out quite a few fighting games recently, and while nothing is quite as good as Super Smash Bros. In my opinion, one that I found pretty interesting is Tekken. I actually had to do quite a bit of research for this one to fully grasp the organization and its intentions, but the organization on this spot is the G Corporation, which is a cutting-edge biotech firm that dug up the remains of Kazuya Mishima, who had the devil gene inside of him. They resurrected him, and he became the leader of the corporation. The G Corporation's goal is to harness the devil gene and take over the world. Because what else would you do if you were an evil corporation? The big company that keeps them in check is the Mishima Zaibatsu, which is led by Jin Kazama, who is Kazuya's son. The Mishima Zaibatsu fights back the G Corporation's evil plots by using the Tekken Force, a group of specialized mercenaries that work under the Zaibatsu, and were organized by Heihachi Mishima and now led by Jin Kazama. The G Corporation deserves this spot because it's a basic evil organization that pretty much fits the guidelines of an evil organization that you pretty much think of. Number 3. The series that I loved probably the most growing up has to be Pokemon. And the obvious evil organization from this series is Team Rocket. Team Rocket is an organized crime group led by Giovanni, who works undercover as the Viridian City's gym leader. He sends various grunts to steal Pokemon, torment Sylph Co., and otherwise just cause mayhem, until you eventually defeat Giovanni and disband Team Rocket for a while. Then, in the second gen games, Team Rocket grunts are terrorizing Johto in an attempt to gain Giovanni's recognition and so he can resurrect the organization. Then, of course, there's the Team Rocket from the show, which mostly consisted of Jessie, James, and Meowth, and their attempts to capture Pikachu and other various Pokemon in order to be recognized by Giovanni. This is always hilarious, all adding up to the reasons why I had to have Team Rocket this high on the list. Number 2. Ever since I was young, the Resident Evil series sparked my interest. I remember watching my dad play Resident Evil 4 when I was younger, and I remember being both terrified and intrigued by it. Then recently I watched a Let's Play of the first game, a Let's Play and a half of Resident Evil 4, some videos of Resident Evil 0, and I've even seen most of the movies, live action and not. At this point you can probably guess what has the spot, and rightfully so, the Umbrella Corporation. The Umbrella Corporation was built right outside of Raccoon City in order to gain publicity as a pharmaceutical company, and to have a large support in the stock market. What they were doing behind the scenes, however, was creating a series of zombie viruses that could be used as a bioweapon. They tested their creation by unleashing it on Raccoon City in 1998, which caused complete mayhem. The Raccoon City Police Department sent a specialized group known as Team STARS, which consisted of Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Barry Burton, and Albert Wesker, who was actually a scientist for the Umbrella. Albert Wesker was put in the police force as an undercover agent to twist the police's support in favor of the corporation. However, Chris and Jill found out what Umbrella was up to, so Umbrella sent a nuke to prevent the word from getting out to the public. However, Chris and Jill escaped, and once word got out, Umbrella's stock crashed, and the corporation was through. However, many former scientists, including Wesker, along with various new organizations like Tricell, recovered the virus from the bomb site and used it in various ways, such as selling on the black market, to spread chaos even more. Resident Evil is one of the best video game series story-wise I can think of, and when I originally thought of this list, the Umbrella Corporation was the first thing that came to my head. And it's no surprise. Whenever anyone thinks of evil organizations video games, one of the first things that comes to mind is Umbrella, because it fits the description so well as an iconic villainous organization. We're finally at number 1, but before I reveal it, let's recap. Number 10, The Empire, from Valkyria Chronicles. Number 9, The Booze, from Luigi's Mansion. Number 8, The Underworld Army, Kid Icarus Uprising. Number 7, The Squeak Squad, from Kirby's Squeak Squad. Number 6, The Sedge's Empire, the Rune Factory series. Number 5, Prosecutors, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. Number 4, The G Corporation, Tekken. Number 3, Team Rocket, Pokemon. Number 2, The Umbrella Corporation from Resident Evil. And finally, number 1. Organization 13. When I came up with this list, the first thing that came to my head was the Umbrella Corporation, but the second thing was Organization 13. When first announced, Kingdom Hearts was seen as a very strange idea that was most likely going to be a huge failure. But once it came out, it became one of the most complicated and amazing stories in video game history, period. While I admit that I don't enjoy the games as much anymore, I personally feel weird running around the Disney castle, talking to various Disney characters. I really did enjoy playing Kingdom Hearts 3 Fave Over 2 Days, where you get to actually play as the organization. I enjoyed it so much that when I lost my data, I replayed it rather than selling it out of frustration, like I did with Legend of Zelda Phantom Hourglass. Pretty much the only reason why I would say that I still generally enjoy the Kingdom Hearts games is because of Organization 13. They were first introduced in the second game, Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories for the Game Boy Advance, where they drew Sora into the Castle Oblivion and screwed with his memories in order to recreate his Keyblade. Organization 13 consists of creatures called Nobodies, which are the empty shells of darkness created when humans lose their souls to the darkness. Then they become heartless. Once someone becomes a heartless, a nobody is also created. Nobodies are the empty shells of who they used to be, meaning that they have no heart, and thus no emotions or feelings. Organization 13 consists of various members. There are the main members, and then there are peons, which are just used for basic scouting missions, basic stuff. But the main members include, which are in order, Xemnas, Zigbar, Zaldin, Vexen, Lexius, Zexion, Saix, Axel, Demix, Luxord, Marluxia, Larxene, Roxas, and Shion. Now, I know what you must be thinking. You just named 14 members, not 13. Well, Roxas is the nobody of Sora, who wields the Keyblade. The organization's main goal is to defeat the Heartless, and collect the hearts they drop in order to recreate Kingdom Hearts, thus gaining themselves their own hearts. However, only the Keyblade is capable of collecting the hearts that the Heartless drop, so they took Roxas and created a copy of him, Shion, which could also use the Keyblade. This meant twice the productivity. However, Sora's memories, which they were screwing with in Chain of Memories, became fused into Shion's existence, which meant that Riku, Mickey, and eventually Roxas and Shion had to defeat the organization in order to return Sora's memories to him. I know that this is pretty complicated, but that's what Kingdom Hearts is known for, having one of the most complicated stories in video game history. That's why a lot of people love it though. The various organization members have their own unique personalities, elements they can control, and weapon types, which make for a very interesting group, whether you're fighting with them or whether you're fighting them or playing as them. I really enjoy the story that the organization brings to the table, and I think that they make for the best evil organization in video games, in my opinion. Well, I hope you enjoyed my list. Feel free to comment on who you think I should have put, as well as any feedback as to how I'm doing as far as commentary or editing goes. I'm pretty new to the idea of actually making my own top 10 list videos, and I have a lot in the works, so they take a lot of editing and time to make, so I'm always happy and open to advice. Anyway, thanks for watching, God bless, and I'll see you guys next time. See ya.